Who knows what the pineal gland is? Where's it located? Obviously the brain. Somebody said something about the pineal gland. You did. Pineal gland. Remember what the Socrates said about the God connection? Third eye. You know, in woo-woo medicine, what I call woo-woo medicine, which encompasses basically what I call New Age medicine. They like to talk about, the third eye, right? I don't like to talk about the third eye. I just like to talk about what things really are. So the pineal gland, you see that over there? It looks like it's shaped like a pine cone, and it's very, very deep within the brain. See it? It's like a little nub back there. Now, if you go to Wikipedia, great source of information. It tells you that it's an endocrine gland in the brain of most vertebrates, and it produces melatonin. Y'all, by the time the word melatonin is going to just agitate y'all by the time it's over. That's all you ever hear about, melatonin. And it modulates sleep patterns. So it helps with your, it looks like a pine cone. It's responsible for your sleep. And it works, with the other parts of the brain, basically. And nearly all vertebrates, it says, there are certain ones that lack a pineal gland, but almost everything. Lampreys don't have a pineal gland. But, that's it. The pineal gland has numerous roles in endocrine, neurological, and psychiatric pathologies. So the problem is, to begin with, you saw what it said on Wikipedia. It's somewhat probably, it's responsible for your sleep patterns, right? And it produces a hormone called melatonin. Well, that's not the only hormone that it produces, and it's not the only thing that it does. In fact, look at that. It talks about here that there are other, look at this. There are a lot of different roles of the pineal gland. And it produces also something called DMT. Now, we'll get to that, but that's a pretty exciting chemical. Cerebrospinal fluid. So, what's interesting is, let me tell you one fact about it. Do you know that there's more blood flow that goes to the pineal gland than any other organ or gland in the body except for the kidneys? Now think about that. There's more blood flow that goes to the pineal gland than any other gland or even organ in the body other than the kidneys. Now, that's a lot going on just for some good sleep, right? That's weird that it would be so, so much blood flow just for that. And also what's interesting is, you have something called cerebrospinal fluid that goes up and down your spine and it goes up to your brain. Well, guess where it goes in the brain? It bathes the pineal gland. The pineal gland is suspended and bathed constantly in cerebrospinal fluid. Why did people have COVID-19 issues with brain fog? Why did people have brain fog when they had COVID? You've heard of brain fog, COVID brain fog, long haul COVID brain fog. Most of us still probably have a little bit of it, where you just couldn't quite think. And when you had COVID, you remember how that was if you had it. You just were foggy headed. It was like you were barely there. Of course, the flu feels like that a little bit too, but COVID was particularly bad about it. Well, the reason is they found that COVID created cerebrospinal fluid inflammation. See the spine there? And the reason we were having brain fog, and the reason people are having brain fog is because of an inflammation within the cerebrospinal fluid. Well, that also affects the pineal gland, as if we needed any help affecting the pineal gland. By the time this is over, you may just believe that there may be some sort of conspiracy that they don't want our pineal glands working for some reason. Yeah. Well, dumbed us down in more ways than one, too. Pineal gland, like I said, has a high blood flow. I spilled the beans on that one. I knew I was doing that when I started talking. It's loaded with mitochondria. Now, why would it be loaded with mitochondria? It's so hard. It gets 20% of the total blood supply. The brain does. But almost all of it goes straight through the pineal gland. It helps with, has tons of energy, tons of ATP production. Now here's something interesting. How many people here have heard that the pituitary gland is the master gland? Right? The brain. That's like responsible for most signaling, and it basically makes testosterone in men. It makes luteinizing hormone. stimulants the gonads to produce testosterone, and in women, you guys have testosterone too. Some maybe got more than others because some are meaner than others, but I mean that's some of us men don't have a lot of testosterone either. You can tell by looking at it. So it's like, you know, testosterone is pretty vital in a lot of roles within human pathology. So here we have the pituitary gland function, and we have this mentioned. This is hilarious. Oh, by the way, we're actually researching something here that's one of the hardest things in science or in biology to research. How much time do we have?
About 30 minutes.
We had 30 minutes a second. That's cool. Time has stopped.
Okay, 25 minutes.
Okay, awesome. That was a lot in 5 minutes too. The pineal gland can alter the behavior of the pituitary. Look, wait a minute. Y'all read that? The pineal gland can alter the behavior of the pituitary gland. Now, if the pituitary is the master gland, why is the pineal gland telling it what to do? Yes, ma'am. That's what we need to sit down. Seriously, why? Do you know? No, they don't. They don't want you to know. They don't know. We don't know. They don't want us studying it. Now, here we have melatonin's differential inhibition of follicle-stimulating hormone and luteinizing hormone release from hamster pituitary glands. Okay. Remember they said older research suggested that it might have something to do, might have a little input into the pituitary. So now the pineal gland is like, hey, pituitary gland, you need to do this. The pituitary gland is like, I'm the master gland, don't tell me what to do. The pineal gland is like, do it anyway. It's like, okay. Well, that's a powerful gland, isn't it? So scientific. But look, it's not old research. Here we show clearly that it inhibits FSH and luteinizing hormone release from the hamster pituitary glands. It's telling the pituitary what to do. Now, what's the function of the pineal gland? Now this gets more fun because we're talking about, we found some better references. Secretion of the hormone melatonin. Now, I'm so sick of hearing about melatonin when it comes to this gland that I don't even like melatonin anymore. And first off, if you're taking melatonin for sleep, you're taking a hormone. You're taking a hormone for sleep, and the more you take it, the less your body will produce, and the more dependent you'll be on melatonin. Don't take melatonin if you need to sleep, unless you have a proven melatonin deficiency. And if you have a melatonin deficiency, come see me. We'll get that pineal gland cracked open, and you'll be producing all the melatonin you can stand. It regulates endocrine functions. Well, how does it regulate endocrine functions with the pituitary gland as the master gland? In this way, in this wild. Causes sleepiness. Conversion of nervous system signals to the endocrine signals. It's telling your body's hormones what to do now. It causes sleepiness. It influences sexual development. That's a lot for something that only has melatonin. It influences immune system function, and it has antioxidant activity. How do I go back? There it is. Autism is linked to pineal gland insufficiency. Y'all know that? Now we talked about what glyphosate does toward autism, right? We showed that raw data, proven raw clinical data, shows exactly what is going on with glyphosate and as far as autism. But look at what autism in the pineal gland. One of the proposed biological causes of autism is a malfunction of the pineal gland and deficiency of its principal hormone, melatonin. Y'all, it's not just the melatonin. Don't get started. I'm sick of melatonin. The main function of melatonin is to link and synchronize the body's homeostasis and homeostasis processes to the circadian and seasonal rhythm, and to regulate the sleep-wake cycle. Okay, it's all about. Now, do you know? Does anybody here have autistic children? You know that a lot of times they're prescribed melatonin. Mega doses of melatonin. I'm talking 30 milligrams. The studies for melatonin were done with 1.5 milligrams of melatonin. That's all anybody should ever need, unless they have a proven melatonin deficiency. Guess who has a proven melatonin deficiency? Every autistic child ever tested. Every one of them. So it's interesting that supplementation.
What about a kid that has ADHD and PTSD?
Well, that's getting over. Once again, we'll get over into the pineal gland's function, and it's very interesting. I actually had an autistic boy look at me one time, and he said, "I don't want my pineal gland opened up. I don't want my." He says, "I don't want to hear from God." Where? History of the pineal gland. Now, Socrates says that the pineal gland as the point of contact between the soul, body, and the place where our thoughts are formed. Now, this is, this was considered quackery, from like 1800 until maybe 1955 when they discovered none other than melatonin. Melatonin was the magic chemical that they thought was, responsible for sleep patterns and the only thing that really the pineal gland was good for. However, Socrates says back then that he believed that it was a place where our thoughts were formed, and it's basically where we end up talking to God. Now, here's something interesting. A little bit later, like back in the 2000s, there's another guy named Strassman who claimed that it contained something else, and he called it DMT. Now, y'all might have heard of DMT from such sources. I don't know, Johnny Depp trial. DMT is one of those things that people go down to Peru and take shrubs and leaves and make concoctions that make them violently ill and see visions and have, all these different things, and then DMT is produced. Well, DMT, Strassman describes as the spirit molecule. So, now look, Socrates back in 1600 basically says that it's your connection to God, and then Strassman, who wasn't even didn't really hardly believe in God, ended up, by the time his research was concluded, discovered DMT and that it was the spirit molecule. Now, after he named it the spirit molecule, guess what science did with DMT and with the pineal gland? They once again threw it in the trash. Because what does modern day political science really, not political science, but the politics of science, not really want to address or identify? Human spirituality and or an existence of a God or anything like that. So now we have the spirit molecule. And down here, they do mention that, of course, the Hindus, the Buddhists, and Eastern, basically, religion and theology has always considered it to be vital, and that it is the third eye, and it's involved in spiritual enlightenment. Now, Strassman, 1990s, asserts the pineal gland is also responsible for secreting the naturally occurring psychedelic hormone, DMT. Now, basically it's along with the melatonin. Now, DMT might contribute to the visual effects of natural dreaming, near-death experiences, religious visions, and other altered states. See, the world has a problem with DMT. They can't figure DMT out because they can't figure out God. Because you can't figure out God. Now, once again, sorry to the atheists, because you're going to have to either tolerate it or whatever. But this is good science. At least you can see. You can spirituality. Let me tell you, I've never seen anyone who's ever done ayahuasca that'll turn an atheist into an agnostic really fast. Kind of like traveling to Alaska. That'll do it. You know what I'm saying? We've attempted to understand its functions throughout history. The pineal gland has been associated with mystery and myth. The Socrates, so forth, and the French writer. Oh, there was another French writer who wrote about it, but he was even more wiped out than the Socrates. Did y'all read that slide? Now let's just be frank. There's a very synonymous situation with autism and a lack of spirituality in a lot of cases. It's very difficult sometimes for people to deal with their children and their grandchildren because it seems like there's a wall there spiritually. There's not the emotional connection to God. They can, they can go to church and be wonderful and act good. But it's very difficult. Now, this happens because of calcification. Now, what do you think could calcify the pineal gland? Well, that doesn't help me. You're right. Right, Zay? You said fluoride. Now, I was a fool for the last 30 years, I guess, and everyone who came to me who started talking about fluoridation of the water, I signed things and rolled my eyes. Okay, I'll sign it, getting the fluoride out of the water or whatever. I used to think it was a conspiracy about, that people hated dentists or, like the dentist wanted the fluoride to be out of the water so that, they'd be busier. And so I really just didn't cash into the whole concept until we find out that it's true that not only fluoride, but chlorine and bromide, which are all found in your water. Matter of fact, some will even label it. You can, of course, get fluoride and chlorine and bromide-free water. Processed food and calcium supplements when taken in inappropriate amounts. In other words, calcium without magnesium and D, and too much calcium just in general. Fish such as tuna, prawns, and shrimp contain high concentrations of mercury, and then also the mercury causes calcification. Mercury in the medical vaccines, sugar, caffeine, alcohol, and tobacco have been shown to calcify the pineal gland. And there's our inorganic pesticides and herbicides, glyphosate, atrazine, what we talked about in the first PowerPoint. So the science of it. Now look here. Now here we talk about the pineal gland being immersed in cerebrospinal fluid. This causes it to camp out in a tiny area behind the pituitary gland. A research study done in the 90s found high concentrations of fluoride in the pineal glands of study participants. It's not supposed to be there, but it gets there because of water mainly. Fluoride from water and pesticides accumulate in the pineal gland more than any other part of the body. Now, isn't that strange? Highest blood flow, highest accumulation. It's like the most delicate little gland we have, yet it receives all that blood flow. And after accumulation, they form crystals, creating a hard shell called calcification. It's not only part of the body, the pineal gland is not the only part. It can also, they can calcify heart valves and breast tissue and the joints, and that's why you have things like, different types of bursitis, arthritis, and joint issues, and calcium spurs, and all those different things. It's calcification. Calcification of the pineal gland leads to melatonin insufficiency and is now recognized by the National Institutes of Health as being widespread. So now, because of melatonin, the little hormone that I'm so sick of hearing about, I don't know what to do with, but because of that, we actually have some studies. If they were studying it for the DMT, they would never do the study. Pineal gland calcification, melatonin production, aging-associated health consequences, and rejuvenation of the pineal gland. So now, we're back to hope. Because up to now, we've just gotten depressed because we're thinking, oh my gosh. And even in the case of these children who are autistic now, we have some testimonials, I'm telling you. Aluminum glyphosate can synergistically induce pineal gland pathology, and it's all connected to the gut. Surprise, surprise. Many neurological diseases, including autism, depression, dementia, anxiety disorder, and Parkinson's disease, are associated with abnormal sleep patterns, which are directly linked to pineal gland dysfunction. They're still obsessing about the sleep pattern, but still. The pineal gland is highly susceptible to environmental toxicants. But have you ever seen the commercial on Saturday mornings that say, hey kids, be careful, don't calcify the pineal gland? No. It didn't happen. Right. No, yeah, they said eat the Cheerios, kids. Pesticides and herbicides. Melatonin rescues the reproductive toxicity of low-dose glyphosate-based herbicide during mouse offsite maturation via the GPR signaling pathway. Now, GPR signaling pathway. What this basically is saying is that when they gave melatonin, which was just stimulating the pineal gland, once again, they're hung up on melatonin. Melatonin. No, it's pineal. That's what matters, because pineal is a lot more than just melatonin. Fluoride. Boom. Studies. Here's your meat. Here's where you see that they've actually shown that fluoride is causing calcification. And it also, it's, for some reason, fluoride is affecting sleep patterns. Because they're so obsessed with sleep, but still, at least they're obsessed with something regarding, the pineal gland. But yeah, they're actually over here surprised. My goodness, for some reason, fluoride exposure in sleep patterns. It's because of the pineal gland. How to cleanse the fluoride from the body. Now, this is super also cool. Have you ever heard of tamarind? Yeah, a lot more of you have heard of it than most people. But tamarind is this really neat. It comes in a seed pod. It's indigenous to Mexico and Latin America. It's also indigenous to India. It's interesting because it seems to proliferate where it's most needed. And it's very interesting how fast tamarind by itself, look at this, effects of tamarind in